That's Nick.
And that's Joseph, and today we're here to talk about Horse Girl, which premiered a couple weeks ago at the 2020 Sundance Film Festival and was released on Netflix on February 7th.
Describe the story.
Alison Brie plays a young woman who is clear from the get-go that is clearly having some mental disturbances, and she comes to believe that she is a clone of her grandmother and causes havoc in the lives of all those associated with her.
Okay.
I think it's incorrectly billed as kind of like a psychological thriller.
Well, the description on Netflix makes it seem like a zany kind of like... Yeah, it seems very off. Who directed it?
So it's directed by someone who I guess is a tried and true Sundance alum, Jeff Baena. This is his fourth film, and all four of his films have premiered at Sundance, although I wouldn't characterize him as having a kind of unique style or anything. I really didn't like his first film, Life After Beth, where Aubrey Plaza plays a zombie whose boyfriend continues to try to date her. And then he did Joshi, which is kind of interesting, and I think it's about a guy he's about to get married and his fiancée kills herself, but they still have the bachelor party.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
I think that has some dark comedic elements that maybe are similar to Horse Girl. And then The Little Hours, which was kind of a send-up of 70s Italian nunsploitation, sexploitation films, and even Pasolini's trilogy of life, which I enjoyed that film, and I think people just kind of wrote that one off.
So the main character, her name is Sarah?
Mm-hmm. And Alison Brie, who's married to Dave Franco, co-wrote this. She
is a beautiful woman whose character works like in a craft store
called Great Lengths,
which I thought was cute. And yeah, her co-worker, played by Molly Shannon, like she seems to have a nice relationship with her and opens up to her, and it's very clear Sarah's lonely, like you said, experiencing some mental disturbances. Her roommate, who I also liked her characterization,
played by Debby Ryan.
Yeah, she does a good job of being sort of this like sympathetic
and helpful to an extent.
Yeah.
To where
well, I mean, in all fairness, probably more helpful than she should have been. But yeah, Sarah devolves pretty quickly.
And we get flashbacks into kind of where she came from. Her mother had killed herself the year before. Her grandmother had a history of mental illness. And then there was an incident involving a horse that we're...
So the title comes from her... So we see her interact... She used to have a horse, and it looked like her best friend or cousin, someone close to her age when she was younger, was riding a horse and fell off the horse and was injured. And maybe experienced a brain injury along with bodily injuries. So now this friend is like in a home because she's not capable of taking care of herself. And that incident may have sort of been the impetus for like Sarah being maybe...
Yeah, it does. I don't think the film does a good job of constructing what is the slippery slope of her descent into madness per se. But I think the first.
But the horse, I was going to say, the horse, who she used to have, no longer belongs to her, but she still goes to the stable where the horse is being housed, and is sort of awkwardly trying to ingratiate herself into like this horse's sort of life and the. Like in the film, the young girl who's using that horse to train. I thought those scenes were effective in creating sort of like an awkward tension.
Well, because it's with the exception of Molly Shannon as the coworker, she kind of annoys the fuck out of everybody.
Yes.
Including her ex-stepdad, Paul Reiser, who shows up in one scene.
So the film kind of trots along for about like halfway, more than...
Pun intended?
Oh, that wasn't a pun intended, but... It isn't until about the hour mark, because this film's like an hour 45 minutes, that things start to decline rapidly.
Very rapidly,
when she meets a man who she wants. She seems interested in him.
Yeah,
he's very interested in her. So she goes on a date with him, and he makes some comments about believing in like aliens and like how the pyramids were built, and I think she thinks that she's free to express her true inner feelings, and immediately becomes clear to him that this bitch is crazy. There's a scene where she asks him to drive her. Well, she asks him to drive her to this random man's home, where she explains that she thinks he might be like.
It's played by John Ortiz. She sees him in her dreams and believes he was also abducted by aliens and cloned.
So of course the new beau is like alarmed. She convinces him to drive to a cemetery where she wants to dig up the remains of her dead mother to do DNA testing to see if she actually is a clone.
With a pair of scissors.
With a pair of scissors.
Yeah.
So by that point, it's kind of going off the rails. She gets admitted to a psychiatric facility.
For 72 hours.
For 72 hours. And it's that last 20 to 30 minutes that it's very unclear, like if it's a dream sequence. It's certainly not real.
Yeah, correct.
But we don't quite get, like, I didn't quite understand if she is actually, like, has she left the psychiatric facility or?
That I think she has an out-of-body experience in that time frame, in that moment, yeah.
So what did we like about the film? I really liked the actress who played Sarah.
Which is funny because you didn't like Glow. She's
in that?
Yeah, she's the lead.
I did not like Glow. I watched how many episodes?
I don't know.
I watched quite a few. It just didn't grab my attention. And I think I didn't care for her in Glow. Is that what I said?
Yeah.
Okay, if I said that.
But I remember Mark Maron talking about her character in that, saying she has this impossible job of making this very annoying girl seem likable.
Yes. So, okay, well, I said what I said, but in this film, I did like her.
I did like her, and it's a well-crafted performance and seemingly around and for her. But also the film, I think, makes the mistake of being entirely...
Well, hold on. Let's talk about what we liked. So, what's her name again?
Alison Brie.
Alison Brie did a great job. Molly Shannon. I wish Molly Shannon were more things because she has such a great face.
She does.
I love that she's aging naturally.
You didn't see her in Wild Nights with Emily.
I didn't.
Emily did. Oh, it's so good.
But yeah, I really like seeing Molly Shannon. Her smile is so warm, and I think it was perfect casting for her sort of like confidant, Sarah's confidant. What else did you like?
We both liked Debbie Ryan, I believe, is the roommate.
Yes.
I was enjoying the fake TV program that Alison Brie's obsessed with.
Purgatory.
Starring, I do like Robin Tunney quite a bit too.
Okay.
Who plays this woman.
That was fun seeing her, yes.
And so it was produced by the Duplass brothers, and Jay Duplass shows up as the social worker.
Oh, that's him. Okay.
And I think the film, it seems rather cold, but there's something very real about that situation where people suffering from mental trauma or anguish are admitted to these facilities and they just get tossed out. Because you even made a comment, like that really happens. And he's an empathetic social worker, but his hands are tied. He can't force her to. He makes an appointment for continuing therapy.
Hoping that she'll go. So I do like the depiction of, what we would assume is like paranoid schizophrenia in Sarah. I do think it's fair and it seems honest and real, not exploitative. Not like they're trying to make her seem so crazy.
Right.
But where I think, so delving into what didn't work for me, I do think, because this kind of feels like whomever wrote this maybe has experience with this sort of mental illness, like a close friend or family member. Yeah. So, the aspects of the story where it's like, as a spectator, I see how this is developing, I think that's very accurate. So watching Sarah sort of live her life and the little sort of weird things that are red flags work really well. But when we get into the inner workings of this character, it just kind of feels very like, it's very abstract.
Yeah, I felt very, at once where I was immediately empathetic, I became suddenly very estranged from it.
Yes.
I think it's worth mentioning, because we also just watched it, was I felt towards Sarah very similar to the woman in Let's Scare Jessica to Death, where it's just this, like, I felt immediate empathy for her and it's an investment.
And that's a testament to the acting and the writing. So good job in that area. I guess what I was expecting was a more quiet, brooding, like dark representation of this mental illness, and the last 20 to 30 minutes seems a little chaotic, like almost not humorous, but it was hard. Yeah, like you said, I didn't really connect with the sort of the anguish, but I also can appreciate that perhaps the writers were thinking like this chaos that we're experiencing is, you know, just a tiny percent of what this individual might feel on the inside. Mm-hmm. And in that respect, it is horrific and frustrating and sad. So,
what did you think of we didn't talk about it, when she's seeing the alien, the thing with the fingers was kind of, I liked that.
Yeah, there are some little things in there that are definitely, I like this film overall enough, and I think it's worth a watch.
Yeah, for sure.
It does feel very indie.
It does. And I don't know that when you think of Sundance and all of this man's films that have played there, if they're deserving of it or not. But it got dumped on Netflix with really little fanfare, and it probably is a film more deserving than that.
Yeah, and again, referencing the Netflix description of the film, it seems a little like off. I mean, this film's not something that I could easily describe, but I think that maybe they didn't know exactly what to do with it or how to market it, because I don't think it's a psychological thriller. I would just classify it as a drama.
Girl interrupted.
Yeah. Anyway,
my two last points. I forgot. In the purgatory thing, I didn't realize this until after the film. Remember the character that plays Hades? That's Aaron Stanford. I didn't even recognize him from Tadpole.
Oh.
Sigourney Weaver. And then also Ari Folman is directing a movie, or is working on a project called Horse Boy right now. So I think that would make an interesting double feature just for titles alone. But
I'm not sure. What would you give this film?
I'd give it 3 out of 5.
I would give it 3 out of 5. Anything else?
No.
Bye.
Bye.